Hello and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back once again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And I guess I want to be as positive and constructively critical as possible, I guess. I want to really help. And I know that a lot of people have sort of said, you know, this sort of thing here and there, like what can TNA do to better themselves? They need better production, they need better this, they need better that, whatever. Um, a lot of those things are somewhat subjective, but it is, something that everyone notices. Those little details sometimes really help things. Now I really like the whole picture in picture stuff. That probably saves a couple of matches from being less good because like when you're trying to follow the action and they go to break or something, it's really annoying. Yes, sure, most of the time you're not going to see that much, a bunch of rest holds and whatnot for the most part, but it still takes away from the storytelling of the match in the entirety of it. We just watched Gresham versus Kushida. Not what I was expecting in some ways, as far as where the story was going, but it feels like they're going in a new direction with that story, which seems pretty cool. I don't know whether this is the new direction or this was going to be the direction or whatever was going on. I think whatever they're doing though is very interesting. Um, and I feel like it's not over. I definitely feel like it's not over. It doesn't feel like it's over, um, despite the outcome. And people who might say, "Well, I feel like it's over" or whatever, I don't agree. But yeah, that's another, like, it is a bit of another discussion for another time. But again, just like that perspective of everyone has a different perspective, type thing. And like this is the thing, like I don't think TNA needs to do the same things that WWE does, or is doing. Like even though they're partnering with WWE, and mostly with NXT, but like people say, well, what's the benefit or whatever? Well, you're getting all of these people, that are, and NXT is a pretty small audience, but still, it's a much bigger audience than what TNA is sort of used to. And I think the level of people just going, holy shit, we're seeing these TNA guys coming over, you know, I honestly think that what the way that uh, NXT is booked isn't the way that TNA should be booked. I think that a lot of the stuff that they're trying to do is very NXT centric. It works for the audience that is in that realm. It doesn't really work for the TNA audience, which is again why I feel like there's not a lot of crossover. There is a little bit of crossover, but not a lot. Um, with things like that, people have their favorite stars or whatever, and things like that, or just get introduced to new stars or whatever, things like that. That does help, and they have good production there. I'm just saying, from a storytelling perspective, not everything is hitting, and that's the same for TNA, but I like the more realistic and the more gritty sort of side that TNA has. And that's my perspective, and that's what I like. I know some people like a lot of other different things and whatnot. Um, and like again, like I say, some people will complain no matter what, no matter what you give them. But still, like we're trying to like look at it. So lighting, different shades of lighting, even not just like brightness and whatnot. That's one of those things. It can be, but it's one of those things like realistically, you need good cameras. Like cameras capture everything. You need high quality cameras so that the viewing experience that translates out as a broadcast is as good as it can be. You need the top of the line sort of stuff for the most part, or something that can capture in that very high resolution level, to start getting that production way up there, and whatnot. So yeah, like I like that. I think there is a lot of, it's all little subtle things, really, like that. Like getting, like, it's not a cheap thing. And again, like that, they're in the network, or on a network where they really can't grow very many people on their platform unless they actually get more distribution for their network. It's just not going to happen. That's why the pay-per-views and even the live events are actually like doing way better, because it's like, well, people get to see and experience the show live, as it's happening, and they don't have to, be spoiled to seeing what will happen next week on TV. Maybe there's some stuff here and there that they don't get to see or hear or whatever else, but still, like, you are getting to see the show as it, sort of unfolds for the most part. And that's great. And that's why I love the pay-per-views as well. It's because it's like, yes, this is live. We get to see, like, it all going down now, and that's the time that I usually set aside to, watch something live. I don't usually set aside time to watch something live. I'll just catch it whenever I catch it, for the most part. But I do have been, sitting back to be like, well, I don't want to be spoiled, so I'll watch it as soon as I can or whatever, so that, I'm not spoiled to anything, or most of the time I'm not. Because, like, that does ruin the enjoyment of the show a little bit, and things like that. So it's one of those things. But still, like you say, let's look at Gresham, because I was just talking about him. He has, well, now got two distinct sort of entrances. One for his, I don't know, octopus character, let's call it that. I keep wanting to call it something specific like The Fiend or whatever. It doesn't really have a name per se, so we're just going to refer to it as the octopus mask character. That's a unique entrance, much like The Fiend or whatever else. And separating, the regular Jonathan Gresham and, the, octopus, masked characters' entrances, feels very similar in some ways to that. And I think it's a very cool story that they're telling, but that little piece of production is one of those little things. Like, you're just going to produce this whole other style of entrance for this other personification of this wrestler, and whatnot. So I think that is very cool, and whatnot. So they have to keep that up, but it's hard to do that with every single wrestler. You can't just be like, well, we're going to make this a duality character, and you're going to enter with this music for this character or this personification and whatever else. You can do little things like what they did with Mankind. Like, he had that, crazed sort of entrance, and then, after he'd won a match and vanquished his foes, he'd have that nice, soft sort of piano, violin style music, to sort of serenade him out, because his, hunger had been quenched, sort of thing. Like, even doing that with Rosemary or somebody like that would kind of be good, like, and whatnot. Speaking of whom, she really surprised me, like, this week on TNA Impact, that she was the mystery challenger to Jordan Grace. I was expecting just some NXT person or some, like, indie jobber or something like that. So I was surprised to see that it was Rosemary, and pleasantly surprised to see that it was Rosemary. And they had a great match out there, up until when Ash by Elegance, came and crashed the party and whatnot. But obviously, this is not the end of the story. And, like, they've been telling this sort of story for a while now, kind of, a little bit. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I would love to see Rosemary get a proper, you know, title opportunity, perhaps at Bound for Glory. I don't know. It's tough to say. I've been talking about a lot of stuff that I kind of want to see from Bound for Glory, and I already said a couple of things. I kind of want to see Rhino get one last chance, since he was the first person to main event a Bound for Glory. So that would kind of be a nice sort of full circle moment of some sort, I'd like for them to try to get the Motor City Machine Guns just for an appearance for the Hall of Fame. I don't know whether they feel like, that's warranted because they're, they're going to WWE or they're going to NXT and doing stuff. So that feels like something that you do when you're looking to retire or are retiring or are retired for the most part. So there is that inherent in it. What the thing that I always try to say is what draws fans, and that's the thing. Like, Joe Hendry does draw fans, so that's something that is very useful in their back pocket that they have. I think a lot of people are just like, oh well, whatever. He'll be in WWE in a few weeks or something or whatever. So, or he's in WWE now, so we'll just watch him in WWE when he's there or whatever, and we won't care about his other appearances. Like, we'll just ignore them or whatnot, whatever. But yeah, no, I don't know. It is one of those things that a few people will go, oh yeah, I'll go and check him out or whatever, and this and that. But yeah, I think a lot of people have come to that of being like, it is funny to me that a lot of people didn't know who he was until he sort of went to WWE and things like this. And still, there's some people that I know wouldn't know who he is and whatnot. It's crazy to me. I know that there's probably still people that are out there that don't know who John Cena is. And maybe most people know who The Rock is or who Hulk Hogan is and people like that. But it's one of those things. It's funny to find out, oh, I don't know who this guy is or whatever. Like, wait, what? You don't know who Joe Hendry is? It's always, shocking or whatever. Oh, you don't know who John Cena is? Like, what? What? You don't know who The Rock is? You don't know who Stone Cold is? Bro, you are living under a rock? What's going on? Things like this, it's always one of those things about, seeing these characters and you're so familiar with them, and I knew that there was a few people that probably just didn't know who Joe Hendry was, but I would think that they'd be the more casual of the casual audience of wrestling fans, but even more hardcore fans didn't know who he was. So, and making that splash is great, but it's tough. It's that process, and you think somebody is so over or so, doing so well, but it's well, to an extent, yes, but this year has been the best year that they've had so far for a while, and I want them to keep swinging for the fences. That's one of those things. That's what TNA always did, in my opinion, better than mostly anyone. They swung for the fences. They just went for things. And they're bringing some of that sort of style of stuff back. I think the action in the ring and the stories that are being told are the draw for the wrestling audience, or even the audience in general. But you have to be able to capture that. You have to be able to get in people's faces, make them care, or make them, get invested in some way. That's the process, of being a wrestler. And when somebody gets over, that's when everyone, the cast and the crew are happy, because they know, hey, we're going to be making more money because this person's getting over. And it's not just one person getting over. It's the whole locker room working together to make sure, hey, we need this person or that person or whatever to get over, because, that's what it takes. It takes getting that person or those people over, because, they're the most recognizable as it is. So getting that extra spotlight is what's needed. So, grabbing that brass ring, so to speak, of here's WWE, being like, we're going to give you an opportunity. And they wouldn't have given TNA that opportunity to showcase their talent and whatnot if it wasn't worth it to them, if there wasn't some benefit to them, already. Like, they wouldn't be invested. So they are seeing some return out of it, and that's fine, but it's got to be an equal partnership for the most part, or as close to it as possible. So, continuing to showcase the talent from each side and whatnot is the way that they're going to go, and whatnot. So, and it gives each party, sometimes something to do, and just wins, and people, seeing those wins and getting more exposure. Yes, you can become overexposed, but, you need that exposure early on and whatnot. You need those people to be, begging for more all the time, you don't want people ever to feel like, man, I'm sick of this guy, whatever. Something else, time for something else, like if it is for one night or for one segment or for whatever, that's different. But when it's, like more persistent, like it starts becoming a problem, because it's like, man, we've just seen this guy for so long, we're kind of over it. Time for something else. That's a problem, because you need to have something else there for those fans, for those people to actually invest in. And that's the problem of being like, well, we're too over reliant on one person, but you need to be reliant on one person as far as being the draw, for the most part. So yeah, it's a tough set of scenarios. They're always in a tough set of scenarios because they're not an indie, really. I know some people say that they are. They're not really. They're way bigger than any indie and have much bigger reach than any indie has. They're on every single week, throughout the year. They're not just on, once or twice here or there, or just like pay-per-views or whatever, or just rerunning pay-per-views. Actually, it's funny that they mentioned New Japan for like the first time in freaking forever on this last week's show. I can't remember the last time that they mentioned New Japan. It's been absolutely forever. So that's interesting to sort of see, because, that relationship, it's kind of been on and off. I don't know what's happening with the AAA partnership. Doesn't seem like there's much happening there. I kind of want to see them go back to Mexico and do stuff too. But it looks like most of the dates for this year are booked out. So, I mean, things could change. I mean, they changed one of the dates from, I can't remember, somewhere to Texas now. Can't remember. Was it Cleveland? I can't remember, sorry. So it's one of those things. I don't know what happened there or why that was. But yeah, going to different places, not just in the States. They went to the UK in the past. They said that they'd go to the UK again this year, but I don't know whether that's going to happen. Hopefully they'll be able to go consistently, to different places every single year. They need to do that sort of thing because, the American market can only sustain so much. But again, it's like, well, you can't go to the same place that WWE is going or that AEW is going. So it's like, well, where are we going to go? We've got to go somewhere, and we've got to go to a market that kind of wants to see what we can bring and where we can be successful. So, like doing that analytics stuff, just like even that helps out their overall product, just figuring out, okay, well, even in the States, like where can we go that we haven't gone for a little while? Where would pay up to see us, like, and things like that. Where's an arena that would suit, what we're trying to do, or, whatnot. And, they've had so many sellouts over the last several weeks, which is great. They're not as big of sellouts as like 10K arenas or anything like that, but still, selling out any arena is good. Like you get to sell out that arena, and it's, in my opinion, it's better to sell out a 2K or 3K or 4K arena than, sell out 4K worth of tickets to a 15K arena or whatever. So I think that that's where you should be. You should know, okay, if we want people, trying to get in, we want, another, 4,000 people at the gate being like, give us tickets or rent a bigger arena, so that we can get that next time, or we can hopefully satiate people or get people, wanting that when we can figure it out and we can think, oh yeah, this seems like it's gonna sell well. So yeah, like it's tough. I think that, again, like if you ever look, I don't think a lot of people have actually looked at a lot of the indie shows and whatnot. Their production, for the most part, is in the toilet. Like, so, but that's not what's important there. Like I'm not going to bag on them or whatever, but it's not good. Like, so, and being number 3 or maybe number 4 in terms of like production isn't that bad. Like, but they still could be better. Yes, absolutely. But still, like, realistically, when you look at it, they have very good production. And like AEW and WWE are both doing this thing where they're doing post-match press conferences and things like that. I think TNA shouldn't do that. I think that is kind of cool in some ways, but I think, that the fact that AEW and WWE are both doing that with their shows, especially their bigger shows, it's like, well, don't do that. Don't do the same thing as anyone else. Try to do something unique and different. And, they had a press conference before Slammiversary, which I think is, better in some ways because you're trying to hype people up for the event that's coming up. And even getting people to, be a bit more free. You've got to have some rules and regulations and whatnot. And obviously, the network decides that sort of thing. No swearing or no using this word or that word between these times or whatnot, or things like that. I get that. But still, I think like they should look at what has worked in WWE. Like always say, hey, look, that's working over there. How could we implement something like that? Again, not copying or copying and pasting or whatever, just saying, hey, how could we, make something like that work here? But or how do you look at the past? Again, look at things that were successful in the past or even are successful now, because that's a good gauge of saying, okay, how can we get people interested? What gains interest? What do people want to see now? How can we format that into a, wrestling universe and, give people that. So, and knowing what wrestling fans want, like they're very good with doing that, keeping their ear to the ground, but surveying people and things like that. But like again, it's just one of those things. Sometimes, buying 50 or 60 or whatever it is $1,000 cameras and buying 5 or 6 of them or whatever it is a lot. It's a lot of investment. And again, like them going live, like that would be the ultimate thing for them right now, because at least then, like again, the spoilers wouldn't be out there and people would have to tune in one way or the other live for the most part to see the show and not be spoiled too quickly. Like I'd probably have to do the same thing. I'd have to, stay off Twitter and stay off things like that to not get spoiled, so that, you can see the match and enjoy it and see the stories play out and enjoy it. So, but yeah, those are things that need to happen. Like, and I don't care if they're in one arena every week or whatever it takes, but still, it's just one of those things. I'd rather see them on the road, but again, it's just one of those things. If you can't figure out how do we get, and that's just it. They need more support in their production, and perhaps WWE can help them with that in some ways. Honestly, I think that they should just like give TNA like a few $1,000,000 and say, hey, okay, buy yourself some proper production trucks, buy yourself some proper, production like crew, that, travel to each city that you're going to go to, do some live shows, fucking go and kill it, like that. That we won't say no, WWE, but like, again, it's really tough. Like, I don't think they want to do that, but unless they own it or unless they are, getting something more out of it. But still, it's one of those things that, to have a more healthy, wrestling environment and for TNA to be getting better and whatnot, they just either need their network to be better, need to be live, which would help them, and need to, or be on a bigger network. They could draw easily as much as what Rampage does, at least, and they could do some good numbers, I'm sure. Like they could do some as good numbers as NXT, I'm pretty sure. So like, it's just the lack of, again, it's the lack of availability of the show, because the show gets a lot of views on YouTube. I'm sure it gets a lot of views on the TNA Plus app. I think it's available on a few other things, and whatnot. So again, you can even see streamers now streaming the show. Like they don't have the show usually on the screen, but again, they're just reacting to the show for the most part. So again, like letting those guys, like, just let them do it, like give them or sell them a license, or say, hey, well, this is what we feel like it should cost, in some way. Like, you're promoting us, yes, but it's also costing us because people aren't watching our show on TV or on our Plus app or on whatever. So you need to think of it like that. You need to think of it. It is something that we need to get money from in some regards, so that, or eyeballs on our product, so that, again, we're getting that money and we're getting, to build ourselves bigger and better, because that's what people want. People want it to be the best that it can be. They want it to be like rivaling AEW or rivaling NXT in terms of like feel, look, presentation, everything. Just every aspect feels like, man, this is on par. And I think a lot of things are on par with like NXT and WWE as a whole, and some of the AEW shows, but they're just like not on the network that supports it enough, and that's got enough reach. So, And again, just having taped shows really hurts. Like, even if it was bi-weekly or fortnightly or whatever, having live shows would really help. So I do want to keep discussing, ways that they could improve and things that they could do, but I want to hear from you guys. I only want to hear positive, building sort of things. I don't want to hear people saying, oh, they suck because they suck or whatever and things like this. That's dog shit. If you feel like that, go away. Do not even bother, because I'm just going to report you or just block you. I've got no time for these people that, just, are haters effectively. So I haven't got any time for that. But anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this one again, and I hope you will join me again in another one.